Welcome to this video on using big reports. We're going to specifically look at the future enrollment report, but what you see on this is going to be really applicable to other reports as well. So to access big, there'll be an email that I will send out to you guys. You may have already received it, but if you don't get it, please just send me an email with a link to big. You're going to want to save this link or even save big as like a favorite on your browser. So by the way, you can only access big reports from a school district computer in a school district building. So you cannot access this from home even if you're using a laptop. You have to be in a school district building to get these reports. The report we're going to look at is called Future Enrollments. I've used it a lot, so it shows up under favorite reports for me, but it probably isn't there for you. So the easiest way, I think, when you're looking for a report that you've not used before is to go to this report catalog. This is an alphabetical order of listings. These are all live links. They kind of don't look like live links, but they are. So if you click on the name, it's going to open up. Almost all big reports open up kind of like this, where things are really blank. That's because they're going to require you to use some filters. I'm going to click our school first. If you teach at more than one school, you would have more than one option there. Grades, I'm actually going to keep all of the grades, but if I wanted to maybe just look at a smaller population, I could filter that here. I'm going to look at the first term. And what's going to happen is there's this list of every teacher who was at our school, I think, last year. If you're brand new, you may not be loaded in this yet. You'll probably get loaded probably within a couple days of school starting, but there's like a rollover process at the start of the school year. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look at maybe one of my own classes. So I'm going to just select myself. When I do that, this list of courses originally, before I chose my name, had everybody, or every single course that is offered in our entire school. Now it only has mine. Now, by the way, if maybe I was looking at a PLC, maybe Sarah and I are in a PLC together, and now I've got both of our names selected. What would happen here is that this would include all of the courses that we both have between the two of us. So the list is a little bit bigger now because I've added in another teacher. It's kind of nice because if you are wanting to look at data for a PLC, you could click like all of the English 3-4 teachers. And then what you could do is you could select the course that you have in common. What I'm going to do is just select one class. And I'm going to, in a minute, view the report. I'm going to pause the video when I view the report because, to be honest, there's some things I don't want you guys to see for student confidentiality reasons. So I'm going to try to be careful here, but I'm going to view the report, pause the video, and then we'll take a look at it together. Okay, so here's kind of what the report looks like. I've got the names covered up. There's a lot on here. We're going to look at this more closely, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to an Excel document to look at this because, to be honest, that way I can protect the student confidentiality even more, because you won't be able to see like the student ID number or the last and first name. And so, I can't do that from this browser, but I can do that from an Excel document. So I'm going to, if you print here, I'm not going to actually click it right this second. But if you click here, you can save things as a PDF. They look kind of funny as PDFs. So I usually save them as Excel docs instead. And I think that that's probably the highest functionality. So I'm going to do that now, and then we'll look at this again. Okay, so here's my Excel doc. Now what I've done is I've taken all of the student ID numbers and first and last names, and I've actually changed the font to white so you can't see that. And actually, I had been doing some sorting. Let me go ahead. I'm gonna put back all of the grades. Let me actually do that really fast. Hang on. Okay, sorry about that. I now have all the grades. So for this class, I've got 10th through 12th graders in this class. It's not sorted, but I could if I wanted to. So I'm going to be able to see the student's ID number, their name, the grade, what school they were in last year. All of mine went to Damani. Who their counselor is, me, my name, since they're scheduled with me, their race and ethnicity is listed on here. Some things are blank. This right here kind of tells me which students are special population. So, for example, I don't have any children in transition. I do have looks like one student on a 504, one gifted and talented student. I have a couple students on an IEP. I have a couple kiddos who are EL within the last 3 years. So I do have, I think, 4 students who are current EL, but I also have other students who were EL in the past. So maybe this kiddo that says level 5. They were identified in 2010 as being an English language learner. They have since exited. That's why this number here is so high, this 5. This kiddo, the first row, also identified in 2010, but has not been making as much progress, and so is still listed as emerging. And so I have 4 that are currently EL students, and I have 14 that have been EL in the past, but many of them are very high level, high performing in terms of their language acquisition. So that gives me a little information. This just is the score that they got to get that level on EL testing. Let's see. The attendance right here, these are blank because it's attendance for this school year. So if I looked at this report maybe in October, I could get some information. You know how it is where sometimes you realize kids are absent, but you don't realize how often they're absent. This would be probably very revealing to me later on. Right now, there's no information because it's for this school year, which has not started. There's no data. The SBAC is SBAC assessments are taken in middle school and elementary school. This has the most recent one, which probably for these guys would have been elementary or middle school, like 8th grade, and how they performed both in English and in math. Level 1 means that they were emergent. So like my first row was level 1, which is emergent for both English and math. So this student struggles in both content areas, which are both of interest to me in the course I'm teaching. Versus the third row, this student was level 4 in English, which is exceeding the standards. So level 1 is emergent, level 2 is approaching, level 3 is meets, level 4 is exceeding. And in math, that same student who is exceeding in English is approaching. Now, if I look, this is a math class that I'm teaching. It's a credit recovery algebra 1 class. All of my students are level 1 or 2 in math except for 1. I have 1 student who in 2019, which was a few years ago, did meet standards. But most of my students have struggled in math for a really long time. There's some more reading information and math information. Probably most interesting here is whether or not they're catching up to proficiency. I do have a kiddo here who's catching up. This one is proficient, but most of mine are just following further behind every year. All right, science data is listed here for those of them who've taken the high school science test. Some of them it's blank because they are going to take it maybe this year. The MAP data does not roll in until the start of the school year. MAP data is stuff that was taken, it'll show the most recent, which is middle school, like 8th grade, but it doesn't show up until the school year rolls over. And so I can't see anything there now. I could look in a week and see stuff if I wanted to. This is the one that we're really probably going to want to look at again. I haven't looked at this. I can't see this right now, but in a week I could see this data. This is probably the stuff that I would really want to pay attention to for my class because this is a class of kids who are recovering credit. So they've already struggled, already have failed in math at school. But so this would tell me, if there's a number in this column, it would tell me that they have an attendance risk. So rather than me having to look up the attendance for every kid individually, if I look at this report next week, I could see right away. Now, a 1 is a lower attendance risk than a 2 or a 3 or a 4. So the higher the number, the bigger the risk in that category. Transiency, whether they have moved a lot, changed different schools, which we know really hurts their academic learning. Retention would be like maybe if they had to repeat some courses in past years, not a course, a grade, such as maybe they did 3rd grade twice. Credit deficiency, that's kind of a big deal because this lets us know whether or not they're behind on the credits they should have so far. Suspension, obviously that's a risk indicator for graduation. And then what they do is they add up all of these numbers and then they get a total risk. And the higher this number, then the higher that student's risk is of not graduating. And then this will tell us if they're low risk or high risk, etc. but I can't see that right now. The credits grad potential is actually really interesting, but it is a little bit misleading. So I do want to explain a little bit about this. These are the total credits earned. Now, this student is a senior. These are all seniors. This poor little kiddo, I think this 3 credits is an 11th grader. So some of mine have really low number of credits. As an 11th grader, we would expect them to have much higher. These are still really at risk because as seniors, we would really want them to come in with closer to 18 credits at the beginning of their senior year. So I've got some kiddos at real danger of not graduating. I have someone with no credits so far. The total missing required credits, I had to really kind of look into that. This does not mean how many credits they need to graduate. If I did a little math here, this doesn't lead me to the total number of credits for graduation. This is how many specifically defined credits that aren't electives that they need. So for example, this 8 could come from maybe some of the 4 years of English that they're missing, or could come from the 3 years of social studies. It could come from the 2 years of PE. What won't show up here are just the unassociated extra credits that kids need to get to the total number. I think that 22.5 is old. I think it's now 23. I think there's like a flex in there. I might have that total wrong, but this is clearly not the total that they need. The GPA for students is on here. If it's the same for weighted and unweighted, then they've never taken an honors or dual credit or AP, which is for many of my students. And here you can see this little kiddo has a 0.273 GPA. This is a high needs class. So I'm going to have a lower GPA than maybe many of you guys, which would have more of a mixed class. This is not a mixed class of lots of heterogeneous students. This is a learning center for kids who have failed algebra. So I've got a specific group, but you could see some pretty low GPAs. This one, a GPA of 0 because they've not earned any credits. And whether they're on track or off track to graduate, a couple are on track. Most of my kiddos in this class are not. Now I'm going to pause the video in a minute because I'm going to show you the student profile that you can get. And you can get this student profile by clicking on the student ID number